Your source for all things Texas Tech. This is the Ask Level podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome into another edition of the Ask Level podcast, episode number 31. Alongside Chris Level, I'm Chois Woodman. Christopher, how are we doing today?
What's up? I'm doing good. Yeah.
Good. Have a good week. You have a good week?
Oh, I guess so. Yeah, trying to. Yeah, just the whole. I'm ready for a coach to be named in basketball.
I think everybody is.
Yeah, I think everybody just that kind of thing kind of wears on everybody if you're kind of involved. And I can only imagine what it's like if you're really involved. I'm not directly involved, just kind of. An alum and then, broadcaster and all those kinds of things and just general,
Sure.
Interested in the program. But I can only imagine if your livelihood depended on it, probably not probably a really long week. But I think had a good week. Enjoyed arguably one of the wildest NCAA tournaments we've ever seen. I think that's the beauty of that sport is that it's got a postseason unlike any other really in any sport. And I think that's what makes it so much fun. I say it all the time, but it's the best reality TV there is, because if you wrote some of these scripts, Hollywood would kick it back out and go, no way. Nobody
believes
would buy
that.
this.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so much fun. It's not a 2 out of 3 game series or 4 out of 7. It's a 40-minute pop. And as we've seen, man, a lot of interesting results. And I mean, it just speaks to the fact that Florida Atlantic and San Diego State are going to play in a national semifinal, and one of them will play for national championship. Is just, you almost just like, okay, who's lying to me? Are you making this up? But no, that's the very much reality. So anyway.
Yeah. It's been a great tournament. I mean, if you like the upsets, there's some people that love the upsets early and then want it to get to more of the blue bloods.
The blue bloods, yeah.
When it comes to Final Four time and not really any blue bloods. I mean, UConn is in that territory, but they're not one of the true Kentuckys or Kansases. I mean, they've won 4 titles. So.
And if they were to pull it again, I think how could their fifth
right.
title and since '99? I mean,
yeah.
I would say that's actually much more impressive than what Kentucky and Kansas and schools like that have done. Whatever. It just all has happened in a 20 to 25 year frame.
And 3 different coaches too.
Pull it off, that's what tells you.
Yeah.
It's not just a coach.
Yeah.
It's not just Mike Krzyzewski and Duke. It's, can you, so anyway, but yeah, that's a different subject. But yeah, I've got a lot of basketball on my brain
for sure
in the last week or so. And then obviously some Texas Tech spring football as well. But
yeah, we'll dive into this football in a little bit. Got a couple of questions from the audience on that front, but still at the forefront of most Red Raider fans' minds is who is the head coach. And who knows, maybe when you're listening to this, we may have a head coach named by that point, but you've gone through a couple of full weeks since Mark Adams' resignation, and you don't have someone named. Now, there was a report this past week by Jeff Goodman. Your feelings on him or not, that could be a whole nother thing, but he says that Grant McCasland has emerged as the lead candidate for Texas Tech. And if you talk to most, that is kind of an assumed thing now. Is in your mind, is McCasland pretty much a done deal?
Well, yeah, that's you can't pretty much have a done deal.
Okay,
I think that's an oxymoron. No, it's not. Not until he's announced as the head coach here. I do think that's who your next head coach is going to be. But until it's announced, and that's why you've had the delay and everything with no news coming out. I think they've honed in on him. I think that it's simply a matter of letting his team finish out the season, which has just been extremely tricky for all involved. I'm sure him and North Texas, along with all the players and potential staff members at Texas Tech and the fan base, just trying to, this limbo, and it just feels like these days are just creeping by, just glacially slow, and trying to get to Tuesday night and then potentially Thursday night of this week in Las Vegas, because his Mean Green will take on Wisconsin. If they advance past that, I think they play the winner of Utah Valley or UAB, and that game. And I did determine that there is no, at least it's not listed anywhere. They used to play a third place game in this tournament because the Red Raiders actually played in it in the Garden.
I remember that.
There was a gap when they just kind of did away with it. I think they brought it back the year after the pandemic, but then last year they did not play it. I don't believe it's on the schedule to be played this year. So if they do lose, so in other words, I guess what I'm saying, he's not guaranteed to be, coaching into Thursday night. So there's a chance that if Wisconsin pulls it off Tuesday night at the Orleans Arena, then I think we'll get something rather quickly. But again, until that's done, I just would caution, to be careful there, because there was a lot of rumors that he had agreed to something and backed out and all these things. That's why you just don't know. But I do think he's going to be your next head coach. Yes.
So I've seen some reaction from fans and, message boards, social media, wherever, our chat line on our shows. Is Texas Tech doing the right thing by waiting? Texas Tech and Grant McCasland, North Texas, all of the combined, by waiting on some sort of announcement? Or is it, hey, this is the NIT, what are we waiting on? Why haven't they announced and then just let them finish?
I don't think it's about the right thing or the wrong thing. I think it's about what everybody is comfortable with. And if you are honing in on a guy that you think is going to be the next leader of your program, at that point, he kind of gets to dictate terms in some ways to you. And if he doesn't want to have anything said publicly until after his season is over with, I think you grant those wishes, because I think it's not about these awkward few days. It's about finding the right fit whenever that would come, whether it be 3 weeks from now or a week ago. It's about finding the right guy to lead your program into the future. And it's not about 48, 72 hours or whatever it is that you're having to wait here. I think that's do I think that he can be, if he is going to be your next head coach, do I think he spent some time thinking and focusing on Texas Tech? Absolutely. I can't prove that, but I do think that Grant's a sharp guy. I think people will really like him, and I think he's very polished. He's energetic. I think he's got a bit of a brand when it comes to deep coaching defense, which kind of fits the identity of kind of what your program has been here when you've been really good in the last 5 to 6 years. And so, but I get it. It's tricky. And I think people are, and I can only imagine if you're a player on that roster, you're just like, your life is at a halt, and you want to know what you want to know. And you're just having to sit tight, and patience is not anybody's strength this time of year in this sport, just because there's so much movement and things like that. So I can't tell you if it's the right or wrong thing. I think though that it's whatever everybody's comfortable with, and if this is what the new head coach and what Texas Tech was comfortable with, and I think you abide by it, and you move on.
So McCasland, if you were to put a percentage on it that he is Texas Tech's next head coach, what percentage are you putting there? This has been a question we've been asked on our shows multiple times this week, so I'm relaying it to you.
I'd put it in the 90s. I certainly feel like that's what's going to happen. But again, I just would say
there's still a window.
Well, until you get an announcement and you see somebody at a press conference and all those things, I just think that's just you can't talk in absolutes. But I think that it all points to him.
One of the questions from the audience level is from Leah this week. She asks, during this time for Texas Tech, do you have a staff member or administrator holding things together for the student athletes during the interim? She says, I'm feeling compassion for our players during this limbo period.
Yeah, this is a really tricky time, as we've discussed, and I think I don't remember Texas Tech or some schools operating what on what Texas Tech has done in this case, where they kind of moved on from everybody, pretty much
Mm-hmm.
everybody. I think you've got, you know, you've got one or two people over there
Mm-hmm.
that are kind of, in the building. I think you've got somebody strength and conditioning wise. I think you've got a medical personnel. You've got somebody that's kind of operations person, but that's pretty much about it, I think. And I guess I was curious as to why Texas Tech would operate that way, because usually you kind of keep as much as you can together, and kind of, for in no uncertain terms, you kind of babysit the
Sure.
program until the administration figures out what's next. I think why you do it this way, one, you had spring break right there on the cusp of, or I say cusp, well, right there that followed Mark
Mm-hmm.
Adams stepping down, and so you kind of had a week built in to where you didn't have to worry about anybody. Maybe that factors in, but I think what you've kept from happening is for the new coach, whoever it was going to be, to come in and have to like immediately fire everybody because they're
Right.
all still retained. I think it allows him now to kind of take meetings with maybe who he wants to on staying, whether it be graduate assistant, assistant coach, strength and conditioning, operations, whatever it may be. I think now he can kind of. So I think Texas Tech kind of keeps him from having to do all that, and it can be somewhat cumbersome.
Yeah.
And now I think that so that's the. But in the meantime, yeah, there's not a lot of folks over there. I think there are people, I think, in the Womble on a daily basis. It's just not very many at all.
Yeah, I think it's just a strange situation all the way around. And then, as you mentioned, if McCasland is the guy, the NIT tournament, the timing of it all. I mean, some were almost wishing that they lost to Oklahoma State in that game, so you could just move on. But then you're kind of rooting against the success. So the whole thing is a strange situation. I think we're all trying to hit the fast forward button to just get to the next scene.
And I get it, and it's awkward as we're sitting here because you're in the in between. But 6 months from now, this won't have mattered much at all, I don't think. I had somebody that's been in the business a long, long time, say to me, they have to find the right guy, even if it costs you a player or two.
Mm-hmm.
Getting the right guy is the most important thing.
Sure.
And I just you go off of the Kansas State example. I mean, they took a bit to get Jerome Tang in there,
And it worked.
and I don't know whether that cost him Nigel Pack or anything. And obviously, Nigel Pack had a phenomenal season, and they had pretty much 9 new players. And if you put the right kinds of players together and then coach them right and give them some positivity and culture, it can work. You can even get to the Elite Eight. How about
Yeah.
that? So I just
Man.
don't think that you can be held hostage by a time frame as opposed to finding the right guy that you would hope to be here for years.
Right.
Okay, so again, it does it. Patience is not a virtue. I certainly understand, and trust me, I would love
Yeah.
to fast forward as much as anybody, but that's just not the situation that we're in.
I know the Bible tells me I'm not supposed to want what my neighbor has and covet, but I'm sure coveting Jerome Tang about right now and watching how things have gone for Kansas State, and that's why I'm looking at. I'm like, fast forward a year from now, maybe not, imaginary land of an Elite Eight next year, but just get back into that territory. So I'm with you. You've got to make this hire count. You've got to make this a good hire. But even in losses, Jerome Tang comes off as one of the most likable guys, going into the FAU locker room and talking to them and his post game press conferences, and they absolutely hit a home run with that hire. And it was a guy most people didn't know his name a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, he'd been on the bench for a long time
Sure.
in Baylor, and I think Big 12 basketball folks kind of knew who he was. But I
Right.
think if people kind of wonder, would he ever leave? What would be the right job that he would leave for? But the thing about him as a potential candidate is that if you wait till his season ends to talk to him, and then he says no, which I have a sneaking suspicion that he's going to remain at Kansas State and be paid handsomely to do so. I think that you could have missed out on a variety of other, candidates, and then you're left going, okay, now what? And I'm just giving you a hypothetical, but that's the timing. It can be certainly tricky, but I do think that's just not who Jerome Tang is that you don't stay somewhere for 20 years and then go somewhere and then in year one and all that with what you just pulled off and go, you know what, I'm out. I'm out. Now, I'm not saying he wouldn't have. I just that would have seemed to be a bit far-fetched and that's why, to me, part of that is that's why you like him so much, because I think there's some loyalty there and some genuineness and all those things. But anyway.
So looking at the final part of the basketball thing, the players, we had one more player this week, Elijah Fisher, officially went into the transfer portal. So you have 4 names there for sure. And then there's still some kind of wait and see with the rest of the names. Well, if you had to pick 1, 2, or 3, however many you want to go with, but just a player or 2 that you really want to see Texas Tech keep and try to build around, who would be the ones you want to see remain on this team?
I can't really give you anybody that your program's future is, I think you could bring a lot back or you could bring none back, and I don't know if it necessarily changes the trajectory of where your program is going to go. I think so. In other words, there's not like a no-brainer answer there. I think most people are going to be curious about Pop Isaacs and Jalen Tyson and the Bachos. I think Elijah Fisher fits in that category. I think I'd like to have Robert Jennings. I don't know anything about what Lamar Washington wants to do. I don't know about what Fardaws is essentially looking at. I just say all this to offer up that there's no brainers here.
Okay,
there is no brainer. Got to do everything you can to hold on to this guy or these guys. I think that you would be wise to hold on to a nucleus if you can. But and there's a lot to like about a lot of the guys that we're talking about here, but there's nobody that's going to, I think, directly impact. And again, without the unknown of what do you replace them with, I have no way of knowing that. I just know that there's not an all-conference guy, here. There's not a future NBA draft pick sitting here right now that I would say. I think if you're patient, though, if you keep some of these guys around here, they can be really good basketball players for you. You've got some scoring here. You've got some rebounding. I mean, you've got some guys that wouldn't necessarily be easy to replace per se, but that's up to what the new staff ultimately thinks and how they want to play. And I think that it's just, but I've mentioned, like, I wouldn't. KJ Allen's a great kid. I just don't know if he can play at this level for a contender type. I don't know if Kerwin Walton, Demarion Williams can do that. I think you can kind of go different ways on some of these freshmen. So it's just a matter of, I think Bacho is a key piece if you want to know the truth on what he could ultimately be for you. I think, and I'd like to have him back, but I can't say that anybody is just, gonna be connected to whether you really are successful next year or whether you're just a miserable failure if you keep or let go of this guy. Hope I made sense there.
No, I agree.
Yeah. And it's just, I do think there will be an attempt to keep a lot of these guys, but you just don't know. I mean, is Grant or the new coach connected to his current players out there in the portal? There's all kinds of domino / butterfly effects that will happen here. And it's just kind of a piece of the puzzle that you're just not really sure. You're trying to find the corner pieces. And I guess what I'm saying is, I don't know if you necessarily have bona fide corner pieces just yet. And so with that in mind, what does the new coach think and how does he want to play? And does it fit how he wants to play? I just know you can't wipe it clean. I don't think that you'll do that, but yeah.
So Level, turn the page here. Spring football started up this past week. We got to see a little bit, some media type of stuff, that sort of thing. Joey McGuire spoke, the coordinator spoke. One thing that I guess, stood out. There are a couple of different things that stood out to me from what Coach McGuire said. One of those was basically that Tim DeRuyter has another first rounder type there to work with this year in Steve Linton. So some high praise there for comparing Linton to Tyree Wilson. Not in those words exactly, but similar to it. And another thing was, hey, and he said this before, but he said it multiple times. Hey, this team could beat last year's team that went 8-5 by 14 points. So I don't take Joey McGuire as a guy that just talks to talk either. I don't think he's gonna, blow smoke up your skirt just to do it. So those words, as a Red Raider football fan, kind of get me pumped up and excited for what this next season could be.
Yeah, and I heard the comment, the first round draft pick conversation. I think he actually there was a lot of praise about Steve Linton in the first week of practice. I think he may have been suggesting that he had coached, that Tim DeRuyter had coached Kayvon Thibodeau, who was the number 6 pick in the draft.
Yep.
And that Tyree Wilson is about to be a first round draft pick. And I think that's maybe your back-to-back first-round draft picks, as opposed to saying that Linton is going to be. But I will say this: I do think that Steve Linton has 2 years left of eligibility. I don't think that at this point they feel like he will be here that second year, because of what they have seen. We have a long way to go. I think that they'll get feedback from NFL folks as they come through the facility, and then Steve Linton's going to have to do his part on the field and be durable and consistent and be healthy. But I think the point still stands, Choice. Whatever was inferred there, but I think that's the way I took it. I think you took
that makes sense. It does.
Yeah. But I think you have. Look, if they feel good enough about Steve Linton before practices in the spring even begin, to move Josiah Pierre back to either Michael or Will linebacker, which was a guy that I thought would be a kind of a pressure player, because he did that at the back end of last season. I thought did it really well. I think that tells you a lot. And when you hear as much discussion there, because I've worked with head coaches in the past, and Mike was king of this. He would really kind of pour water on a lot of hype for any player or side of the ball or team in general, just because he wanted them focused, didn't want them to. Joey's kind of the opposite. Joey infuses confidence and tries to speak things into existence, and he doesn't shy away from either expectations or whatever. And they haven't crowned Steve Linton anything, but I think they're basically telling you, kid's really good. He's really quick. He causes lots of problems out here. We expect a great deal out of him this year, so much so that the NFL may call his name sooner than later. So I think, point still stands. And I will disagree with Joey from the standpoint of, I don't think this year's team beats last year's team, and I'll tell you why. Because if you go out there right now, there is no – just keep up with me here, and I'm going to miss some folks. But there is no Tony Bradford. There is no Jacob Rodriguez. There's no Tyler Owens. I mean, there's like 6 to 8 guys that are out. Xavier White is out for the spring. On both sides. Landon Peterson is out for the spring, but they're missing
quite a few,
8 to 10 guys. And so if that game were to be played right now, I'd probably take last year's team. I'll base on that fact alone. However, let's just play along a bit. I think what he is saying is, my offensive line is much better. And that position, other than Landon Peterson, is not been changed a bunch. I think we're faster. Insert Dre McCray. I think, though, that Tim DeRuyter would be the first one going, boy, I'm missing some key pieces. So I'm not sure if my defense is as good as it was back on December the 28th when we were lighting up Lane Kiffin and company. But yeah, I think it's a lot of fun, and that's the thing that Coach McGuire, he's going to be tasked with this year, is like, there's going to be some expectations with this team. I think he's more than willing to embrace it and create his own. But that's what's going to be different from last year, where they were kind of a plucky story that was kind of like an underdog and picked to finish in the back end of the Big 12, and then they kind of came out of nowhere. This year there'll be some expectations there, and that's a bit different. I mean, it is mentally and all that, but I think they're running they're running toward that, not trying to shy away from it.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Yeah, when you look at the comparisons, I agree. There are a lot of pieces out this spring, but Coach McGuire said for I think every single player that is out right now, they do expect to have at this moment back for the start of the season. So that's the good news. And yeah, offensive line I think is where the storyline kind of starts. That's where everybody's looking, because that's where you've struggled, not just last year, but year after year after year. That's been your struggle point. But having guys like Spencer finally in the mix and Rusty Stats coming over and being able to move guys around from last year and not necessarily playing positions that they were supposed to be playing, it just feels like if you're better at that point, it just opens up your entire offense a lot better for Coach Kitley, and you can get better on that side of the ball. So I think there's reason for that hype and excitement, but we're early in the spring, so a lot to be decided.
And I think it's boring to some people to talk about offensive line, because it's not. I don't know what those guys look like. I don't focus on that when I go to a game. I just watch. I follow the ball, all those things. I think Stats and Dre McCray have made you faster, and I think that Stats may have more to do with you being faster as a team than McCray, but they're two totally different things.
Right.
I think Dre McCray is finally somebody that can get behind the defense and can do some things, but Stats is actually going to make you a faster offense from a tempo standpoint, because I think that that's what Zach has said about him since he got here, is that, Dennis picked it up and really kind of got us going faster and all those things. But Rusty is even better at it. And I think that when you've got Dennis next to him, he already knows the deal. Cole Spencer's already played in this. So I think when you do go tempo, I think that'll be much, much faster. And so I think those 2 points are somewhat different, but I think alike in some ways too. But they're telling you, if you just listen, they're telling you how much better they are up front because of the guys that we just mentioned. Right. Dennis at a new spot, and then Rusty Stats being here, and then Cole Spencer being healthy. I think you still have to figure out the tackle situation. But see, this allows for, this really allows for so much improvement and consistency with your offense in general, that I think that kind of lets your imagination run wild a bit. And that's a lot of fun to think about, because it was frustrating at times last year. They were never bad. They just struggled at times. They gave you some chances. I don't think that you could put that on the quarterbacks getting hurt or anything, just being up front. But I mean, Dennis Wilburn kind of saved you. But they were telling you from the mountaintops, hey, we need Michael Shanahan. We need Kay Briggs. We need Ty Buchanan. We need Monroe Mills. So they brought in all these guys because what they saw just wasn't going to work. And so they tried to, add a ton of help to that group. And now they're telling you, I think we've got some of that fixed. And so I think that is certainly a positive. So
no doubt,
we'll see what that looks like. Now, keep in mind, the 3 guys that we've talked about, they're all seniors. So, like a year from now, when we're talking about the spring, it could be a bit tricky, because Spencer, Stats, and Wilburn are they'll be playing football at the next level, or doing something else, selling insurance or something a year from now.
A couple questions football-wise from Texas Tech recruiting fan account on Twitter. First one, it says, Level, redshirt or true freshman you have had your eye on this spring during football practice, or will have your eye on?
Well, there's some guys. I think you could talk freshmen. I think that, I guess this day and age, there's a lot of focus placed on CJ Baskerville, Steve Linton, Stats, McCray, guys like that, to these portal guys, Quincy Ledet. I think those are new pieces. Those are all that. But if you want to talk, freshmen, I'll give you 2 names that are already here. Dylan Spencer, who was kind of he was committed to Texas for a long time, and out of the South Texas area. I think he looks like he's about 25 years old. And then I think when Kobe Minor entered the portal, that was a bit of a surprise to everybody.
Sure.
because I think that he was kind of this next DB. I think that, I'm sure that Rayshad Williams and Malik Dunlap coming back, I think he obviously maybe wants to start. He would have been a really good depth piece for you.
Right.
So I say all that to set up that you've got an opportunity for a younger DB or two to kind of emerge here and take advantage of a lot of reps this spring and really play a key role, not just on special teams this fall. And I would give you the name of Jordan Sanford. I think he's got a chance to factor in as a true freshman right away. So because keep in mind, last year of your scholarship guys, I think Joseph Adedire was the only one that played as a true freshman of your scholarship guys, and he's a freak. I even think he's missing the spring. So there's another one that wouldn't have been able to put on the pads. Isaac Smith is another redshirt freshman that I would have told you I would have paid a lot of attention to. Really started to play at the back end of the season, got hurt in the bowl game, had some surgery, going to miss the spring as well. So there's your two more names on the defensive side of the ball. Not to disagree with the head coach. He's been pretty spot on with a lot of things he said, but I just want people to know that there's a lot of guys kind of missing the spring, but it's good for other guys too. It's good for guys to get reps and all those kinds of things. But there's you some true and redshirt freshmen that I would certainly mention.
And another question from them says, Micah Hudson in town again this past weekend. Could this finally be the first 5-star that Tech lands?
Yeah, I'm trying. Let's see. Robert Johnson was a 5-star junior college guy. I think Mike Mitchell was a former 5-star guy that came in here that you got, after he'd gone to Ohio State. Robert Johnson obviously had a much better career than Mike Mitchell did, but right. I do think you're in pretty good shape with the prospect that you mentioned, Micah Hudson. Yeah, I do. I think he's been up here second time in the last 3 weeks. Was here with his girlfriend all weekend. And I think these are unofficial visits. I think he's a very different guy in that he doesn't want promises. He doesn't want glitz and glamour. He doesn't want NIL. He just kind of wants to play ball and do his thing and find the right fit. And so, we'll see. You may be way far off from a decision there, but it's pretty good for Texas Tech that I know the folks in Austin will disagree with everything that I'm saying, is I think that the folks in Austin feel like they've got him wrapped up and done, but he has chosen to spend some time in Lubbock in the last 2 to 3 weeks. And so we'll see, but I think you're in a pretty good spot there. So his girlfriend, also a senior in high school. So where does she end up going to college? Where does, his dad, obviously his dad has played football here. So he's a legacy, but yeah, he's not the biggest guy, but he is, buttery smooth, man. He is, he's got about, 30 to 35 scholarship offers. I mean, he is one of those
ranked number 6 nationally by rivals. So
he's a guy that's a nightmare to try to cover. And he just wants to play ball, man. I think he's got a job like back at home, going to school, has a job, wants to play ball, doing some track stuff, I think. Yeah. So anyways, just to give you kind of paint the picture there on Micah Hudson.
So keep the hopes high, but we'll see. Nothing for sure. Yeah,
can't put pen to paper until mid-December. So it's a long ways off. But I do appreciate the interest. I think that it's extremely valid question, and you'll start to see some news popping off on the recruiting trail in the coming weeks, because most of that gets done and gets really active this time until really mid-June, when you start hosting kids on campus in official visit capacity. So we'll see kind of what that looks like.
One more question, non-sports related, but from Anton, says, what's the best barbecue in town, Level?
Oh man, I'm a big Evie Mays guy, like most people are. I'm a big Benton Ale guy. I think Benton Ale does a really, really good job on 98th Street. And I think if you want like a lunch, Tom and Bingo's is undefeated from their sandwiches. I kind of been going there for years. So those would be my triumvirate there. And then there's probably a few places that are open that I have not tried, but those would be my 3. I grew up in Fort Worth, and they have great barbecue there. I kind of grew up going to Angelo's and Railhead and all those things. And now there's Heim, and there's, I'm trying to think, some of the other ones that have kind of moved in there. They've kind of, they're there till they sell out. The lines are there, kind of like how he's got a lot of pub for that. But so I when I first moved here, there was a lot of barbecue. I was just like, man, there's just nothing. You know, I used to go to County Line years ago, kind of more of a restaurant type place, but the barbecue wasn't near as good as I was used to. But I would say that Evie Mays and Bentnell and Tom Amigos, for whatever you're looking for, can scratch your itch for sure.
No doubt.
Yeah.
All right, Level.
Not a paid endorsement. That's just my opinion.
No, I'm not going to disagree with any of those options. I'm kind of hungry. So
yeah, there you go.
Level, appreciate it. Another week in the books.
I will tell you the cream corn at Bentnell and the baked potato casserole at Evie Mays. I mean,
oh yeah,
those kind of go with what burn-ins, ribs, the brisket, whatever you're looking for. But those are the side dishes you've got to focus on at either place. So yeah, there you go.
I'm really hungry.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, we'll appreciate it, man. We'll do it again.
Hey,
next
you bet.
week.
Keep hope alive. I'd be willing to bet you that we will have be able to talk about a basketball coach the next time we reconvene.
I bet you're right.
So fingers crossed. We'll see.
That's Chris Level. I'm Chois Woodman. You've been tuned in to another episode of the Ask Level podcast, brought to you by Double T 97.3.
You've been listening to the Ask Level podcast, powered by Double T 97.3.